All right. Hello, I am Colter Patterson, missionary chaplain with Rock of Ages Prison Ministry. And I'm coming from my field church, the church I attend here in Alaska, Chuyak Bible Baptist Church. And I just want to tell you about who I am, what I'm doing, and some of the wonderful things that are coming down the line by the help of the Lord. First off, I'm Colter Patterson. I had the wonderful privilege of growing up in a Christian home. And both my papas were pastors, and so I heard the gospel from the time before I was even born. And one day I realized I didn't have Jesus, and I was going to go to hell. And I couldn't sleep that night. I knew that if I died as I was, I'd go straight to hell. And so I got up and went down the hall and woke up my mom and daddy. And that night I trusted Christ as my Savior. And so then years would go by, and I was sort of a lukewarm Christian. There was a time in my life where all I did was work and go to school, didn't even go to church. But the Lord wouldn't leave me in that position. He would begin to move pieces and things in my life. And one of them was a revival where I realized I was lukewarm. And I got down in the woods, and the Lord would stir a fire in my bosom. And I started attending Bible Way Baptist Church in Kingsport, Tennessee, my home church. And I would go there, and I'd begin to grow in the Lord, begin to tithe, begin to support missions, and started just wanting to serve the Lord. And I would do that, and it wasn't enough. He wanted me to preach. So he'd call me to preach February 18th of 2018. And I would preach for about a year. And then Brother Jeff Castle would invite me to go to prison with him. And the next thing I know, I used all my vacation from work to go to prison. And so I'd go to prison after prison and started asking the Lord, is this your will or is this me? And he would call me to Rock of Ages and to Alaska with this verse, Luke chapter 4, verse 18. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. That'd be the verse God would call me to Rock of Ages and Alaska specific. And he called me with that verse, and I would sign up for the next available class, March of 2020. COVID hit our country during my candidate class. But you know what? The Lord was in it, and I'd begin to find churches still having services, and the Lord would begin to give me my support. And 2 months later, I'd leave work with less than 5% support, and I've never missed a bill, and I ought to have missed a few meals, but I've never missed one of them either. And so the Lord would begin to change things for me there, and I'd build support, and I began to pray. I loved going around preaching in all these churches and things, and sort of started second-guessing Alaska. But I heard of a very large prison in Alaska that had no chaplain, or there's an elderly man there doing the best he can, but they needed a chaplain, and it's out by itself. And I had a couple fears. I was afraid I would be desolate, and I was afraid that I'd be forsaken, those particular things. And as I studied, God would give me a verse just for that prison, and that would be Isaiah 62:4. It says, thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, capital F. That's a name for a person. My fear was being forsaken, leaving the country churches I grew up in, coming to Alaska, but that was my fear. But the Lord said, thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, as a name, capital F. Neither shall thy land any more be termed desolate, capital D. My fear was a desolate place. Those two things, and here they are capitalized in my Bible. And he says, but thou shalt be called Hephzibah. Hephzibah was the wife of Hezekiah, and her name means my delight in her. You'll find the very definition in the text here. It says, but thou shalt be called Hephzibah, and thy land Beulah, for the Lord delighteth in thee. There's Hephzibah, her name meaning, delighteth in thee, and thy land shall be married. Beulah means married. It means literally conquered, but not with bloodshed, with love. So the Lord was telling me if I'd go to that place, I would not be forsaken and it would not be desolate, but that he would delight in me. I'd have special favor, and then he would I would conquer the place with love, His love. That's why I'm going, is He loved them boys at that prison. And so I had a specific verse to go on. That's my marching orders, and I would obey them. And I would come up in August of 2022 and spend 6 months training at the maximum security prison in Alaska. I'm not going to give prison names because this will be on the internet. Then I would, after 6 months there, I would finally go to my prison. I've been there since May of, I believe, 2023. And it's the biggest prison in the state. I stay between 12 and 1,300 men. I'm there 5 days a week. I preach there 3 days a week. And then the Lord would begin to touch the work. And I'm also go to the correctional farm, and I'm a chaplain there also. It's a smaller facility, about 80 men. And I'm their chaplain. I go there one evening a week and preach to those boys and keep up with any requests and things from there. And I also go to the intake facility for the state every other Monday and preach to a faith unit there. So I preach 4 to 5 times a week in prison, and I'm in prison 5 to 6 days a week. And that's what God has called me to do. And He's been blessing it. He's given me a lot of souls for my labor. And even sweeter, as a chaplain, I get to invest in them and watch them grow. And I've even had men come to church with me since they've gotten out of prison. They attend church faithfully. And it's wonderful to see that. So I'm thankful for where God has put me. And He hasn't stopped. We started having a major revival every summer. The first year, I believe, 50 souls were won to the Lord. Last year, I think the number was 45 souls won to the Lord. It's 8 days, 8 furious days in 5 different facilities and transitional houses and also church services. And that'll be coming up in July. And God has grown it even more than last year. It'll be even bigger. Last year was 42 services in 8 days. This year it looks to be even bigger. And on top of that, God has allowed us to send a few men the week prior to a village hub called Bethel. They have a prison there and a youth facility. And I'm going to send a small team there to preach to those men and ladies in that prison and those young people so harsh that they can't stay in their villages, that they put them in that youth facility. That children's prison is what it is. So this year we have 2 more facilities and more services in the same facilities as last year. And it's going to be wonderful. I ask you pray for these things. And I ask you pray for me and the work here. And God has been so generous to me. It's been worth it. A lifetime for one soul. He's already given me that many times over. And I believe some of them, I believe they really got it. And anyone who really means it, when they call on Him, they get it. And He'll work in their life, and I'm there to help them. I'm glad to be where I'm at. Thank you, Chaplain Colter Patterson in Alaska with Rock of Ages.